Hello, I am Chance Tefano, and this is my final project for Humanities on my favorite musical artist, Alice Cooper. I'd like to apologize in advance for, first, the way this video is being recorded. I don't really have a recording software, so I'm settling for using my phone and trying to line it up with the screen as much as I can. So if this doesn't look the best, I apologize. I'll include the PowerPoint itself as a separate link in the submission. I also want to apologize for any coughing. I've been dealing with a throat sickness over the past few weeks. It's gotten better now, but I'm going to be taking a cough drop for this video to prevent me from straining my voice too much. With that out of the way, let's get on with it. So Alice Cooper actually was not born as Alice Cooper. He was born under the name Vincent Damon Fernier. He was born on February 4th, 1948 in Detroit. He was the son of a pastor, and unfortunately he had a series of childhood illness. Throughout his time in Detroit, it's very cold in Detroit. So first they moved to California, and after that didn't work as well as they should have, they moved to Arizona, where he was finally the area was hot enough for him to be able to stave off his illness. Now Cooper had the passion for music way early on. His first band was made as early as high school, initially done as part of a high school talent show. Him and a group of buddies got together for a band called the Earwigs. And their performance in that talent show won the talent show and was overall a huge success. So they decided to go into actual recording, and thus they decided to change the name to the Spiders. And their kind of forte as a band for a while was just to do covers of the hits at the time, as in basically doing the same song but with their voices. So the Spiders in the mid-60s actually ended up being the local hits in Arizona. They eventually ended up getting #1 in the local charts, not with a cover, but actually with an original song, Don't Blow Your Mind. And within 3 years, they'd gotten successful to the point where they're actually now making road trips to perform in Los Angeles. However, after a few years, they got tired of the constant road trips, and they felt that they were kind of exhausted of Arizona's bars scene that they are commonly performing at. So they made the decision to move to LA full-time, which had a higher welcoming of rock and music at the time. Now, at this point, they also decided to make another name change. They felt the Spiders was a little generic, so they wanted to make a kind of a switch up to give themselves more of an image. The name they came up with was Naz. The exact origin of this name is unknown, but this name had another problem associated with it. It was the name of another rock band in Philadelphia. So that left them with an issue. They now needed an entire new name. So how did the name Alice Cooper come to be? Well, first off, let's go with the gimmick behind Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper, at this time still Vincent Fernier, he had felt that other bands didn't take full advantage of the stage. The origin of the stage was for plays, which were commonly showy, flashy, they told stories. He felt that bands need to take more advantage of the stage, use it for more showy or flashy things rather than just sitting there, standing with a guitar and playing music. He felt that for their band to be different and stand out, they needed a gimmick. So they decided they also needed a gimmick that would give them lots of attention, whether it be through controversy or good things, and they went with a potential for controversy, a potential for headlines. They decided that their male lead would be basically a singing serial killer, specifically a serial killer of women. He would wear women's eyeliner, he would wear tattered women's clothing, and basically, because this would get them headlines, and it would have people putting their name out there. So, obviously, now back to the name, you need a name for the gimmick, and the name they chose was Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper on its own, without the context, sounds innocent, and that was intentional. The Alice Cooper Band wanted a name that was intentionally very innocent sounding and would deceive people in, so that the shock of the performance would get to them more. And this didn't exactly work out for a bit. They had a bad gig in Venice, California, but that gig, where they reports say they actually cleared out the area they're performing in 10 minutes. That's how bad they were. But this would end up leading to good for them. They were approached by a music manager, Shep Gordon. Shep Gordon wanted to turn the bad of the band into good. So he hooked them up with comedy rock music artist Frank Zappa, very famous. Frank Zappa was starting a new record label, and he wanted new, weirder acts that were as weird and unorthodox as his act was in terms of rock music. And him and Shep Gordon felt that the Alice Cooper Band was perfect for this occasion. They got the part after arriving to Frank Zappa's house at 7 a.m. in the morning, 7 a.m., and they were able to release their first album with the help of Frank Zappa, which was Pretty For You, which, despite Zappa's production help, was ultimately a complete failure, both in terms of people liking it and in terms of making any kind of money for the band. Now, at this point, after the album, the Alice Cooper Band first developed the shock rock reputation that the band and eventually the solo act would become famous for. The infamous incident has varying reports. A chicken flew on stage during an Alice Cooper Band gig. Now, varying reports claim that either Alice Cooper, aka Vincent Furnier, either threw the chicken back into the audience, where the audience tore apart a chicken. This is most likely the true report, but rumors spread, and the rumor that spread was that Alice Cooper himself had picked up the chicken and eaten its head off live on stage. Obviously, the former variation with the audience tearing apart is true, but when Alice Cooper called Frank Zappa and told him what the rumors were saying, Zappa told him not to deny the rumors and stick with it, as it was more attention, more headlines. So they released another album. That album also failed, so the band decided to move to Michigan. It was stated that LA just did not get their act. And they felt that Michigan was a bit of would have more weird and would accept a variety act more. And this ended up working out. Their third album was Love It to Death, and this was the breakthrough hit they needed. But it was thanks to getting a new producer. No more Frank Zappa. Instead, they teamed up with Bob Ezrin, who is also the producer for the wildly famous Pink Floyd. He provided the band a new type of sound and oddness they were able to incorporate that made them both stand out and actually be a good band. Now, they released a few more albums, and their last album together was Muscle of Love. And after that, the group went on indefinite hiatus. So what happened? Well, during their tour for Muscle of Love, a journalist had spent weeks with them on that tour, and with their permission, he had released a book. And backstage, he said that the group was totally dysfunctional and that they did not get along at all anymore. And this was true. Reports from members of the band and Alice himself stated that they were all simply just tired of each other. They weren't in the mood to deal with each other anymore. The fun of being a band and being together had become a burden. So what's going to happen to Alice Cooper? Vincent Furnier finally made a move. He wanted possession of the band, so in order to take possession of the band, he decided to change his legal name to Alice Cooper. And from now on, and since then, he has been Alice Cooper. So Alice now came back solo. He came back onto the scene with Welcome to My Nightmare in 1975, which was a solo album. It was a concept album. And a concept album is an album where every song is based around one theme, one story, or one idea. Welcome to My Nightmare in particular was based around the dreams of a disturbed young man named Stephen, and every song in that was a different tale of dream of this young man. So Alice was still with Bob Ezrin, and instead of getting the old Alice Cooper band, Ezrin recruited the backup band of Lou Reed, lead ringer of a different band, the Velvet Underground, and this officially put the nail in the coffin, cut all the ties between the original Alice Cooper band. Because Welcome to My Nightmare was a huge, huge hit. Its oddness, its storytelling stood out among rock at the time, and it was so big that it even got a separate TV special, and basically it launched Alice's entire further career. So Alice Cooper released another album. He released Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, and then he released the Nora Base Lace and Whiskey. But then reports are coming out that Cooper needed help with alcoholism. People watching him on stage during one of his tours believed that he was very janky and looked as if he wasn't all there in the head. Once again, these claims were true, because rumors came out that Cooper was actually consuming multiple cases of Budweiser an entire day. Cooper had the wherewithal, actually, to take things into his own hands. He committed himself to a sanitarium to recover, and he was actually able to sober up. This actually inspired an album from him called From the Inside, where basically was a story involving a sanitarium told through song, and the cover to that album is the picture here. But after a few good years, heading into the early 80s, it all came crashing down again. The alcoholism came back. Cooper was hospitalized due to having a non-functioning liver thanks to further alcohol use. Now, he recorded albums before the hospitalization. These early 80s albums are referred to by Cooper as the Blackout albums. Cooper himself stated that he couldn't even remember recording them or doing anything with them because he was on so many illicit substances that they just completely left his mind. It also didn't help that these albums were received worse in every single way. They were big downfalls after the critical successes of his first few albums, and also they performed not as well. And the reason for this probably is because, well, the man doing them was so messed up on drugs and drink. So he did recover, but he had to spend a few good years away from the music industry. He did come back in the mid-80s, and from there on, his career was kind of revived. Over the years, Alice got his fans back, and he also adapted to new styles of music over the years. But in 2011, his biggest triumph came. He was able to reunite with his original Alice Cooper band all the way from the 60s. Collectively, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Altogether, this was the first time since they broke up in the 70s that they'd all been reunited as one band. And that same year, Alice Cooper released Welcome to My Nightmare, which was a sequel to his original solo hit nearly 40 years later, showing that he still had it. And in that album, he infamously partnered with many figures in music. Most shockingly, he partnered with Kesha, who played the role of the devil in the album's sequel, Tale. Cooper had actually met Kesha and felt that she was a perfect hit for rock, despite what some would have said. But that is what Alice Cooper was known for. He liked to defy expectations. So he purposely brought Kesha on to shock the audience. So Alice Cooper today is by no means retired. He is still touring to this day, and he moves a lot on stage. He does lots of shocking things. He dresses in costumes, generally being a crazy man. He just released an album just last year, And he even is still appearing this year. He appeared on a performance of NBC's Jesus Christ Superstar, so he's still in the acting game to an extent as well. Cooper infamously, even recently, as of the last few years, formed a separate rock group called the Hollywood Vampires, where he does rock songs with actor Johnny Depp and Joe Perry, the lead guitarist for Aerosmith. So, Alice Cooper is not going to stop rocking until he dies. I believe that. And that quality of him, along with his overall story of what he's had to go through with the alcoholism, and I love his work, his horror-based work, his twisted mind, and that to me is why he is one of my favorite musical artists of all time. I think he's still one of the greatest today. I think he could release another album and it would be up to par with some of the albums of today. Here are my sources that I used, and thank you for listening.